Have you ever noticed that there's a special kind of loneliness? Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being surrounded by people who simply cannot see what you see. It's like screaming in a language that no one else speaks. And the more you try to explain, the more distant you become. We live in a paradoxical era. We've never had so much access to information, and at the same time, ignorance has never been so celebrated. There's a phenomenon that ancient philosophers already knew about, but which today manifests itself in an even crueler way: the tyranny of mediocrity. It's not that intelligent people are weak. It's that they're playing a game whose rules were written by those who never understood the game. Imagine a brilliant chess player forced to play checkers with children who insist on flipping the board every time they're losing. That's the feeling of trying to thrive in a system that not only ignores intelligence, but actively punishes it. The truth is uncomfortable. Our society wasn't built to reward deep thinking. It was built to reward quick, superficial, and easily digestible thinking. Think about social media algorithms. They don't promote truth or complexity. They promote what generates immediate emotional reaction. The scream always defeats the whisper, even when the whisper contains ancient wisdom. And here's the first great dilemma. The intelligent person sees nuances, understands contradictions, recognizes that most problems don't have simple solutions. But modern society has no patience for nuances. It wants answers in 280 characters. It wants clearly defined heroes and villains. It wants certainties in a universe of uncertainties. You know this feeling, don't you? That moment in a meeting when you realize you're 3 steps ahead in the conversation. But if you try to explain what you see, everyone will look at you as if you're speaking in hieroglyphics. So you learn to stay quiet. You learn to simplify your thinking until it fits into others' expectations. And each time you do this, a small part of you dies. The ancient Greeks had a word for this: idiots, but not in the modern sense of the word. In the original Greek, an idiot was someone who only cared about their own affairs. Someone who didn't participate in the political and intellectual life of the polis. Today, the irony is that the idiots dominate public discourse, and those with the capacity for deep thinking are marginalized. But why does this happen? Why has intelligence become a disadvantage in so many contexts? The answer lies in a truth that few have the courage to admit. Critical thinking is a threat to systems that depend on conformity. If you question too much, you don't consume enough. If you analyze too much, you don't obey blindly. And the modern world desperately needs obedient consumers, not critical thinkers. Think about education. It's not designed to create geniuses. It's designed to create competent workers. Citizens who know enough to operate machines, but not enough to question why they're operating those machines. And when someone exceptionally intelligent emerges in this system, what happens? Either they're tamed and molded, or they're labeled as problematic, rebellious, misfits. There's something deeply cruel about recognizing patterns that others don't see. It's like watching an accident in slow motion, knowing exactly what's going to happen, but being unable to make others understand the danger. You warn about the consequences of foolish decisions. You point out obvious logical flaws. You present data, rational arguments, clear evidence, and then you watch, helpless, as the majority chooses exactly the path you warned would lead to disaster. And what's worse, when the disaster inevitably happens, no one remembers that you tried to warn them. Or worse still, they blame you for not having warned them convincingly enough, as if intelligence came with the obligation to translate complex truths into palatable slogans for masses that don't want to be bothered with reality. But there's an even deeper layer to this phenomenon. The intelligent person doesn't just suffer from external misunderstanding. They suffer from something much more subtle and devastating: awareness of their own powerlessness. The more you understand about complex systems, the more you realize how limited your power is to change them. It's the paradox of knowledge. The more you know, the more you realize how much you can't control. The fool acts with unshakable confidence because they don't see the consequences. They don't lose sleep thinking about the second and third order effects of their decisions. They don't carry the weight of foresight. And ironically, this ignorance gives them a freedom the intelligent will never have, the freedom to act without the paralysis of excessive analysis. Have you ever wondered why so many incompetent leaders rise to power? The Dunning-Kruger effect gives us a clue. The incompetent overestimate their abilities, while the truly competent doubt themselves. But it goes beyond that. Simplicity sells, certainty convinces. And in a world that fears its own complexity, the demagogue who promises easy solutions will always defeat the intellectual who honestly says, the situation is complicated. The masses don't want architects who explain structural difficulties. They want magicians who promise instant miracles. And here we enter the most painful territory of all, existential isolation. When you see the world in a fundamentally different way, every social interaction becomes an act of translation. You're constantly calibrating how much of your true perspective you can reveal without completely alienating the people around you. It's exhausting. It's like being an adult in a world of children, but never being able to admit it out loud. You smile politely when someone shares an opinion that clearly comes from 5 minutes of Google research, knowing that you've spent years studying that subject. You nod when someone presents as a novelty an idea that you've already deconstructed and reconstructed mentally dozens of times. And you learn that most of the time truth isn't welcome. People prefer their comfortable illusions. If you're still here, if these words are finding an echo somewhere inside you, then you already know what I'm talking about. You don't need me to prove anything. You recognize this reality because you live it every day. But if this resonates so deeply, you need to continue with me on this journey to the end. Hit that subscribe button because what comes next might completely change how you see your own powerlessness. So what should an intelligent person do in this world of fools? Give up, conform, become cynical and withdraw completely? These are easy answers, but they're also traps. Because here's a truth you need to understand. Your powerlessness isn't weakness. It's misinterpreted wisdom. The problem isn't that you're powerless. The problem is that you're measuring your power by the wrong standards. Society has taught you that power means influencing the masses, accumulating followers, being heard by crowds. But that was never the true power of intelligence. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the most powerful men in the world, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The real question isn't how to make fools listen to you, it's how to stop needing them to listen. Because when you're constantly trying to validate your intelligence through others' recognition, you've already lost. You've surrendered your power. Socrates was sentenced to death by Athenian society because his questions were too uncomfortable. But he chose to die rather than stop questioning. Not because he was masochistic, but because he understood that his intellectual freedom was worth more than the crowd's approval. And here's the great irony. The Athenians who condemned him are forgotten dust. But Socrates shaped all of Western philosophy. The powerless one won, but on a timescale that fools cannot comprehend. You need to understand something fundamental. Trying to change minds that don't want to be changed isn't just useless. It's self-destructive. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. You can pour all your energy there, but the bucket will remain empty. This doesn't mean you shouldn't share your ideas. It means you need to make peace with the fact that most won't understand, and that's okay. Your responsibility isn't to be understood by everyone. It's to be true to the truth as you perceive it. Think of the great thinkers in history. They weren't popular in their times. Galileo was persecuted. Nietzsche died unknown. Van Gogh sold a single painting in his lifetime. But their contributions transcended their times because they weren't playing the game of immediate approval. They were playing the infinite game of ideas. But there's an even deeper secret that few know. something that can completely transform your relationship with this feeling of powerlessness. Ready? Here it is. Your intelligence isn't a curse disguised as a blessing. It's a test. A test of character, of purpose, of existential meaning, because anyone can be happy when they're understood and validated. True mastery is finding meaning and purpose when you're absolutely alone in your understanding. It's easy to be strong when everyone agrees with you. The real challenge is maintaining your intellectual integrity when the entire world seems to conspire against it. And here's the twist that changes everything. You're not trying to win a competition. You're living a life that most don't even know is possible to live. While the masses chase approval, status, and superficial comfort, you have access to something much rarer, the ability to see through illusions. This doesn't make you morally superior, but it puts you in a completely different game. And when you finally accept that you're playing a different game, the rules change completely. You stop trying to convince and start simply living according to your principles. You stop seeking external validation and start building internal validation through coherence between thought and action. The Stoics had a concept called amor fati, love of fate, not passive resignation, but active acceptance of your reality. If your fate is to see what others don't see, then embrace it completely, not as a burden, but as a calling. Because the alternative is worse, living a life of resentment, bitterness, and constant frustration, because the world doesn't recognize you. And that would be wasting the only true gift your intelligence gives you, the ability to transcend the limitations of common consciousness. You can see beauty where others see chaos. You can find patterns where others see randomness. You can build meaning where others find only emptiness. This isn't powerlessness. This is the opposite. But there's one last truth I need to share, perhaps the most important of all. You're not as alone as you think. In every generation, in every corner of the world, there are others like you, silent, observing, thinking, feeling this same existential loneliness. And you recognize each other not by words, but by the look, by the silent sigh when something absurd is accepted as normal, by the reflective pause when everyone rushes to hasty conclusions. Your tribe isn't defined by geography or demographics. It's defined by consciousness, and finding even just one or two of these people in an entire lifetime is worth all the loneliness you've felt. The powerlessness you feel isn't your true condition. It's just the gap between the world as it is and the world as you know it could be. And yes, that gap hurts, but that pain has a purpose. It keeps you from falling asleep. It keeps you awake while the world sleeps. And maybe, just maybe, your function isn't to wake the masses. Your function is to keep the flame alive for when others are ready to awaken. You're a guardian of critical thinking in an age of intellectual laziness, a practitioner of nuance in a time of simplisms, a defender of complex truth in a world addicted to comfortable lies. So stop measuring your power by your ability to change closed minds. Measure it by your ability to keep your own mind open, by your refusal to simplify the complex just to be understood, by your courage to carry the weight of seeing what others don't see. That's true power, and it's always been yours. The society of fools cannot make you powerless unless you accept their terms about what constitutes power. Reject the terms, redefine the game, and keep thinking, questioning, evolving even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching. Because in the end, the only approval that truly matters is the one you give yourself when you look in the mirror and recognize someone who didn't betray their own intelligence for social comfort. If these words touched something in you, if you recognize this journey, don't let this moment pass. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and more importantly, share it with someone you know needs to hear this. Because maybe, just maybe, you're the connection that another intelligent person is desperately looking for. Be the light you wish you had found earlier.